I want to attempt to address something that I've been putting off for a little while, which is the transmission issue that this truck has. This truck is phenomenal. It's very functional. It's reliable. It drives great. It's mechanically excellent with one big issue, and that is it has a transmission problem that I have not fully wrapped my head around. So, because I'm not a real mechanic, I don't really have any diagnostic skills or tools, we're going to use this method. This is 2 pieces of paper and a Sharpie. And when it does this, it's typically, in my experience, normally when I'm driving this thing, it's like I'm driving it kind of on and off all day, and it doesn't necessarily happen when it's cold, doesn't necessarily happen when it's hot. It's typically when I'm driving this thing, it'll be like middle of the day, and I'll just be driving along normal speed, and all of a sudden it starts popping out of fourth and or third, whatever it's in, and if you shift it down into second, that solves it. And then after you run it like that for a few minutes, typically you can go back up into drive, and it'll typically stay fine after that. So that's pretty much what we've got. Possible causes. Number one, I'm not a Ford expert, but one thing that I do like about Ford is that they stamp a bunch of information on this little sticker in the driver's door jamb, and one of the things that it tells you is the trans is an E. So that means that this is an E4OD transmission, or it should be. I know that the transmission in this truck was replaced at one time. I noticed one time when I was working on it that it has a Ford remanufactured metal tag on the transmission, which is great. You know, this transmission actually works really, really well when it's not acting up, which is most of the time. All right, so we're gonna start lining these up with these and seeing what we can rule out. So TV cable out of adjustment. I threw that in as kind of a red herring. TV cable out of adjustment, that's a great thing to look for in a Ford transmission. We do not have a TV cable here. I actually do have a new TPS for this truck, which is gonna go in at some point. Bands out of adjustment. Now this I feel pretty comfortable ruling out, because I mean, it's not slipping going into gear for one thing. Here's the other thing. Bands out of adjustment isolates your issue to particular gears. The problem presents itself the exact same in fourth as third, and I know that from switching the overdrive off using the switch on the stock. If the problem presents itself the exact same way in fourth and third, I think that pretty much rules out our bands problem. Now that's free to do at home, but if you don't need to do it, you don't need to do it. So I'm just gonna put an X on that. Maybe we'll come back to that at some point. Internal trans failure. That, I'm gonna use the same logic. First off, I'm gonna rule that out because I can't fix that. So we're not about to do that today before we go to scrap metal and the junkyard and the landscape supply. That's not about to happen this morning. So we're just gonna cross that out. But the thing is, why do I suspect that it may not be an actual internal transmission failure? Well, number one, it doesn't slip going into gear, it slips out of gear. So typically when transmissions start to fail, it's when they shift into gear. Number two, it acts perfectly sometimes, both hot and cold. It's just isolated incidents where it does the thing that it does. That also gives me some hope. I just feel like what I'm seeing here is possibly, maybe, hopefully very indicative of this. So I'm gonna get under there and I'm gonna start poking around, and I'm going to see if maybe there's some way that I can deduce whether or not the shift linkage is out of adjustment. All right, so we are down here with the shift linkage. I just want to make a note that I forgot to say earlier. I did check the transmission fluid level in the truck before I got started this morning with it running. It is up to level. It is beautifully red. It is not full of clutch material. It does not smell burnt. So just always good preliminary thing to check, and it also gives us a little bit of hope. All right, so fortunately I have found the E4OD shift linkage adjustment procedure in numerous places online. It's a very straightforward procedure. It's basically 2 steps to get into it, and then the reverse of those 2 steps to get out of it. Step number 1, disconnect the shift link to the cable from the linkage on the side of the transmission at the ball joint. So I assume that just means pull this apart right here. Step 2 is to remove what they call the locking clip, I think they call it, which other people refer to as a U-shaped retainer. We found our U-shaped retainer. It's hard to see because all these plastics kind of look like they're the same color, but you can see this U-shaped retainer is kind of more of a beige color, more of like an off-white, and it hooks into this thing, which is black, and you can see this is the lower part of the U-shape. We're gonna move this down, and then this, once it's free, this will move back and forth, right? And you can see all those little ridges where that clip clips in. So this is how you adjust it. We gotta remove this, put both things in drive, and then when everything's happy, we'll slide this back up and it ought to lock into the right slot up here. I was able to separate the little ball joints. Didn't take anything more than hand force, didn't have to use any tools for that. So now our shifter linkage and our cable are separated. And over here, you see this is the U-shaped retainer everybody talks about. We've got this moved down. So now this is moving freely, right? So what we need to do next is we will put this in drive. We'll put the shifter in the cab in drive. We will then reconnect the ball joint. And finally, we will place this back into the upper position to hold it. And that should be it. And I'm curious to see how much the position of this changes, because I suspect it's going to change a lot. Park, reverse, neutral, drive, 1, 2, drive. That is our drive. That is where we want to be. So let's get down there and line everything up. All right, we're gonna take our ball joint. Is that the right direction? How did this go? I'm gonna lose my mind. No, and it's in. And then this guy right here, we wanna go ahead and clip that in just as it is. Clip restored. All right, now theoretically, that should be adjusted. See if it feels any different in the cab. Because this shifter, I'm telling you, always felt weird. Park. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's how it's supposed to be. I bet I just, yeah. Oh yeah. That's, yes, there we go. Yeah, I think I got this one. Yeah, I think we might be good. So I'll tell you what, I am going to, because this is an intermittent problem, it's not immediately diagnosable whether it's fixed, but I have a hunch it is. I'm gonna be driving this thing around all day doing chores. So if we get to the end of today and the truck, if I get to the end of the day and I think it seems to be fixed, i.e. it has not had the popping out of gear issue, then I believe we are going to call it a day on this one. So I was driving this thing around quite a bit today, and I was about ready to declare it fixed, and then right when I was almost home, just kind of cruising through the neighborhood, it did the thing again. Yeah, I'm not sure. I really kind of thought that I was maybe onto something with that, but anyways. So entering the next phase of trying to troubleshoot and fix the Ford and the transmission issues that it's got. So basically where we're at is the most likely culprits are a couple of sensors, transmission range sensor and the TPS, throttle position sensor. So given that, the smart thing to do, because you can't really replace the TPS sensor without kind of getting into the intake, between that and the fact that the truck runs rich, which indicates that other sensors, you know, temperature sensors, O2 sensors, etc., could be compromised, and the fact that we have to take the intake apart now, and the fact that I just have various reasons to believe that it would be good to disassemble the intake on this thing, clean it up, look at it, maybe ohm out the injectors. It does need a thermostat too, for Pete's sake. I mean, there's quite a number of low-hanging fruits in this region that we can work with. So what I did, in addition to the main thing, is I want to replace those sensors because we think that the most likely culprits of the problem with the transmission are going to be the sensors. So I made up this list of all of these different things, sensors I want to replace and things I want to do with the intake. And when I originally made this list, I was like, all right, well, I got to go through and figure out which of these I really want to do. Because if I just go through and shotgun all these sensors, it's going to be $1,000, and I don't want to do that. So right about that time, I logged into Rock Auto and put all the sensors in my cart, and it added up to like $200, gaskets and everything. So I was like, oh, well, I guess if it's going to be that cheap, then maybe I'll just replace every sensor on the truck and say, fuck it. Or whatever I meant to say right there when I said the F word, which I didn't mean to say. Anyways, that somebody did a really good job with the electrical in here. All right, so I think my strategy is going to be to start with the stuff on the underside of the truck. So this is the transmission range sensor, which, I mean, it looks like that, and basically that goes on the side of the transmission. Pretty straightforward. And then these are a couple of oxygen sensors. So I am going to get up under here and attempt to replace these first, I guess, before I actually do the intake stuff. All right, so this is the first semi-interesting find of the day, I guess. So this is the new transmission range sensor. They call this an MLP sensor. All right, so the new range sensor is in. All right, so we got our old oxygen sensor out. That was pretty easy. Comparison of old and new side by side. Markings on the old one. It does say Ford on it. It's got a little Ford oval. It's pretty small, but you can see right there it's got a Ford oval on it. So it's possible that this is stock and has 298,000 on it. Not sure. It's mildly sooty, you know, chance that we could see a slight improvement from that. Yeah, as for a torque spec, the instructions that it came with actually said do finger tight and then half a turn past finger tight. And yeah, half a turn past finger tight was actually pretty tight. So I feel satisfied with that. All right, so getting through the first cursory pieces of intake removal, got like the hoses off and stuff, so we're getting to see into the throttle plates, which honestly they look fine. All right, so we got the throttle body off. Here it is. So we got new IAC, we're gonna pop on there. We've got new TPS, so we're gonna pop on there. That is the old TPS. You can see there is a non-zero amount of soot, as you can observe right there, and we have some very, very helpful instructions from Ford, which says, what does it say? It says, do not clean inside or adjust the thing, do not clean. So it comes with a very, very friendly instruction from Ford saying, do not attempt to clean or service this in any way, which is counter to everything I've ever known about throttle bodies, I guess. I kind of thought that you were supposed to clean them on some periodicity. You can see the holes in the throttle plates are still clear, and it's not, I mean, it's fine, I guess. It's not terrible. But yeah, so that's the idea there, is we got a new gasket, we got a new IAC, we got a new TPS, and I'll probably just Google it and see what people say to do to clean it, but I expect that I'm gonna attempt to clean it somehow, because it just does not seem to make any common sense not to do that. All right, so we're slowly going through and installing all the new sensors that we got. Here on the throttle body, we've got the new idle air controller, as well as the new TPS. So I ohm checked all of these new components versus the old ones. So TPS, new versus old, there is basically seemingly no change between the new one and the old one on the resistance meter, and same for the IAC. So in those cases, yeah, I'm not seeing a smoking gun. This is the next sensor that we're doing. This is the manifold air pressure, manifold absolute pressure, whatever you want to call it, sensor. And so new versus old, this is the first sensor that I've actually seen significant difference in the ohm readout on. And yes, I did check the TPS. I did check it in motion. I mean, I didn't just do a static check on it. But anyway, so these, the readout across the two furthest apart of the 3 pins is drastically different between the old one and the new one. I think the old one, it's like 30 ohms, and on this new one, it's like 2 ohms. That's between the 2 outboard pins. The other ones, the other readings were in the on the right order of magnitude at least. So we're going to replace this map sensor. We got those. So what's left for us to do is we got a PCV, we got a thermostat. This I believe might be the PCV breather. Yeah, this is a little breather. Yeah, I'm excited to do that because I needed to do that a long time ago. So we'll do that little guy, and yeah, we're making progress. We're doing stuff. I am ohming out the fuel injectors, but I'm learning that they all ohm out exactly the same, which is 0. So I don't know. I guess there's really functionally no point to trying to ohm out this model of fuel injector, but you know, I'm trying. I'm doing it. What's left? The temperature sensor and the thermostat need to be done. So the thermostat is going to be right in there, so I'm going to have to take that apart and do that. And again, I guess I could decide to tear in and do the intake manifold gaskets, but I just don't want to be perfectly absolutely frank. Yeah. So the AC compressor is remanufactured. So there is the new thermostat housing, or the thermostat housing is there. You can kind of see the new thermostat is in there, and a new coolant temperature sensor right there. There it goes. It's running about as good as I ever remember it running. But yeah, new oxygen sensor, new transmission range sensor, new idle air control, new throttle position sensor, new manifold absolute pressure sensor, new PCV valve, new PCV breather, new thermostat, obviously, and yeah, it's running really, really good. It never ran this good cold. It always kind of ran rough when you first started up. Look at that, idling down already. Man, it sounds happy. Burning off a little bit of smoke from things that I dropped back there, I assume. Wow, that is incredibly smooth. That is running so well. Sounds good. Yeah, I should probably turn it around and get it out of this garage. Yeah, but you can hear that. That sounds really, really, really good. Jury's still out as if it fixed the transmission issue that I was having. I have to drive it around some before I really have any idea if it may or may not have fixed that. So here's the other thing I was kind of attempting to fix by doing all those sensors is this thing always ran rich ever from the time that I got it. And yeah, one of the recommendations that people have is for running rich on these, just do all the sensors, O2, map, temperature, because yeah, it runs on those, and if those are bad, that's just what tends to happen. It seems to be not running rich at all. I mean, before it was like, you would smell the gasoline in the exhaust from a mile away. The exhaust just smells like straight up, it doesn't smell like anything now. So it seems to be running a lot cleaner. Yeah, I mean, it's, this thing really, really ran rich always up until now. It seems to be not running rich today, which, I mean, big if true, as they say. All right, so this is the first time driving the truck since doing all of the sensors and everything. Transmission seems to be fine. Didn't skip a beat. Granted, I only drove it like 20 miles today, and that's probably all I'm driving it today. Well, what seems to be good so far is that the transmission on this truck, I don't want to say anything. I'm hesitant to say anything at all. So I've driven this a couple times now since doing all the sensors that I thought may possibly fix the trans issue. I don't bet anybody's gonna hear anything with that open. But it seems good so far. This is like the 4th time I've driven it now since I did the work to it. I keep driving it, and the transmission keeps, I have not had one single issue from the transmission since I did all that work. All right, so it is now November. I fixed this thing up back in the spring, did all those sensors, and including the transmission range sensor, and I was kind of hoping that would clear up the weird transmission problem. And the thing is, I did that all back in the spring, and this thing made it all the way through the summer and into the fall, and it never had that issue again, that weird transmission dropping down into first gear randomly issue. And so I thought, well, maybe it's fixed. And then eventually it did come back, which didn't completely surprise me. So either the new transmission range sensor, which is on the other side of the transmission, either that has now also failed in exactly the same way as the previous one. It doesn't seem real likely. Or it was never the problem to begin with. So this morning, I went onto the internet, which is what a smart person does, and I explained what was occurring in my life. And the gentlemen who were there suggested that I look at the wiring harness of the transmission for issues. Look at that trans mount. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Look at that. There's no rubber left. I don't care. These are the two plugs that go into the trans. This one is in better shape. This is the one that goes into that range switch, neutral safety switch, whatever. And the thing is, I replaced that neutral safety switch, and I think what I was going after when I replaced that the first time around was actually the switch is not bad. But this connector is, and you can see that chafing and all that. All right, so this is old versus new. This is our old connector. This is our new one out of the box. Looks like a nice, decent quality unit made in Taiwan. They've even got it stuffed full of dielectric grease already. All right, so this is with all the new wires crimped on. I know it sucks, but I suck. Because I think that you're supposed to light these on fire with, with a lighter. All right, so here we are after copious amounts of electrical tape. Got this thing back into the loom. All right, so in conclusion, my trans issue was a wiring issue. It was that plug for the range sensor on this thing. Those wires had become frayed. I thought it could be a bunch of different stuff, but ultimately that was the issue with this trans, and I've driven it since I repaired that wiring harness. I've towed a car 60 miles with this thing. This thing is fantastic. The trans shifts better than it ever does. Even in addition to that crazy randomly just dropping into first gear with no warning thing that it was doing, that was bad. But it also always shifted hard, especially the 1-2 shift was always way too firm in this thing. Man, the shifting performance of this transmission is just absolutely A1, spot on. Even towing thousands of pounds, I mean, it's perfect. It really, I have full confidence that that was the issue. I had to replace a few things. I had to chase a few things that it wasn't to get there. Ultimately, it was people on the internet telling me, hey, check your wiring harness, see if it looks like this. So I guess moral of the story, 2 heads are better than 1, or internet heads are, I don't know, internet heads are good. Anyways, and in addition, I also replaced all the sensors on this thing as part of the troubleshooting and issue chasing with the trans. And as a result of that, this thing no longer runs rich. It always ran really, really rich ever since I had it, doing all those sensors, coolant temp, O2, all that stuff. That seemed to really perk it up, and 298,000 on the odometer now. And yeah, only 298,000 more to go for this thing. But yeah, so that was it. Mission accomplished.